Hello. It's Wednesday of that Passover week. Jesus continues in the discussions as he has the past couple of days. And in the background, there is some movement in the shadows. One of the very guys, one of the 12 that Jesus had chosen, is making his way to the chief priests and officers who are currently plotting to kill Jesus. We find this passage in Luke chapter 22, 1 through 6. Now the festival of unleavened bread, called the Passover, was approaching, and the chief priests and the teachers of the law were looking for some way to get rid of Jesus, for they were afraid of the people. Then Satan entered Judas, called Iscariot, one of the 12. And Judas went to the chief priests and the officers of the temple guard and discussed with them how he might betray Jesus. They were delighted and agreed to give him money. He consented and watched for an opportunity to hand Jesus over to them when no crowd was present. Judas betrayed Jesus. What a horrifying, matter of fact, even despicable sin to have committed. We even know that, and it is well known today, because that word or that name, Judas, is actually synonymous with betrayer. The question might be, why would Jesus, who would know all things, right, choose Judas to be part of his 12 who followed him? The truth is, Jesus knew exactly who Judas was. Matter of fact, it's the next evening at the Passover meal that Jesus would quote a scripture that implicated that one of the 12 is going to betray him. It's out of Psalm chapter 41, verse 9. At that time at the table, there with Judas present, he read this passage. He who ate my bread has lifted his heel against me. Now, this action of lifting his heel is actually this image of the betrayer placing his heel or his foot on the neck of the one who's betrayed. Judas, the betrayer, Jesus, the one who's betrayed. Judas was not alone in his unholy plan. The scripture we just read pretty much says that Satan entered into Judas. Judas didn't even have a chance to do the right thing, it seems. But the truth is that just as Jesus was destined to be crucified, Judas was destined to be the betrayer. Yet there was a choice working within Judas as well. He was accountable for his action. There was within Judas a sin that he was harboring, and that sin was greed. There's a story that happened, matter of fact, maybe just a week ago, prior to them entering into Jerusalem, where Jesus was gathered with some of his disciples in the house of Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. And Mary took a jar of ointment, and it was very costly, and broke it over Jesus' feet, or it poured it out over Jesus' feet and wiped it off with her hair. And Judas is said to protest this, and rightly so. He said, oh my goodness, the cost of that perfume. We could have taken that perfume or that ointment and sold it and used that money for the poor. That would have gone a long way. But in the scripture where this is recorded, in John chapter 12 and verse 6, it reveals the true heart or intention of Judas, where it says, Judas did not protest this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief, and having charge of the money bag, he used it to help himself to what was put into it. Judas was greedy, and he was already acting out that greed by stealing. What a privilege it was for Judas to have Jesus, the Messiah, call and ask him to join his 12 and follow after him. Judas, for the past 3 years, has had the opportunity to witness his miracles and listen to the teaching of Jesus. But Judas had this sin working within him. It was a secret sin that he continued to hold on to. When the moment was right, when that moment was right, Satan took advantage of Judas and directed him to betray Jesus for a mere 30 pieces of silver. Judas is an example of someone who's enslaved to their sinfulness. He continued to harbor that sin instead of holding on to his devotion to Jesus and a pursuit for following after him. It's a good time for us to examine ourselves. We look at someone like Judas, and it's easy to be critical, throw stones in his direction. But the truth is, we could be harboring something in our lives not known to anyone else. And it's possible that Satan might find a way for his purposes to use you. Be careful.